I'll show you around my kitchen. Right. It's very small, so I'm going to show you here. So I've got all my stuff hanging up on the wall behind the door. So when you open that door, you can't see any of that because we've not got an awful lot of storage space in here. I've got hanging up all my bits and bobs. This is a wax wrap sandwich wrap, so it's made of beeswax and cotton instead of cling film. So when it gets a bit crackly, you just pop it in the microwave for a few minutes, well, a few seconds probably, and melt the wax again, and it goes back to good as new. I've got my butter dish so that we don't have to buy plastic things of spread anymore. We just use pats of butter with foil and the butter dish. Got my bread bin, so all my bread goes in paper bags and goes in there. I made a whole load of tiger bread the other day. I don't know if you saw it. It says you've gone, Drew. Where have you gone? Are you back? So these are our little squash bottles, and up there are the big ones. So I pulled these out of the recycling when I found the big ones, and we just topped these up with a funnel from the big ones, and then we recycle the big ones and keep these ones constantly because it's less plastic overall from a 3 litre one as opposed to, what's that, a 750 millilitre bottle. Got my knives and things up on a metallic thing on the wall, using as much of the wall space as possible. This is my spice cupboard. I've got like loads. I use them all because we cook vegetarian, so there's only so many ingredients, but you can cook rice and beans like a million ways. So that's what's in there. That needs sorting out, it's not organised. This is the tea cupboard. I've also got this huge jar here that I've got to use up of tea bags. I didn't know this, but tea bags have got plastic in the actual bags. So rather than buying tea bags in future, we are buying loose leafed tea in tins from Whittards, and we've got tea strainers and things. So this cupboard is kind of undergoing a makeover, and some local Oxfordshire honey. There's quite a bit of bad press about honey in the vegan community, but a lot of the stuff that's cited is actually from PETA, the Protection and Ethical Treatment of Animals, whatever they're called, and it's actually based on commercial honey farming in America, and that doesn't happen in this country. We've got very, very strict laws on beekeeping, and all local beekeepers are regulated by the British Beekeepers Association, and they've got very strict regulations. So I think it's a really good thing for the bee population, for colony bees, to support local beekeepers and get one of those solitary bee hotels for the garden, because solitary bees and other insects are actually our main pollinators. Colony bees play a very small role. So these are our thermoses, strainer teapot, strainer cafetiere. This is a tiffin lunchbox, so you can have all sorts of different containers. The only issue with this is you can't microwave it because obviously it's metal, but we have got 2 plastic thermally insulated tiffins up there as well. This is a tea-air, it's like a cafetiere but for loose leaf tea, and I really like that. And this is the in mug tea strainer and lid that James uses. That was from Whittards. So we've got all of our appliances that stay out up over in the corner here. This is a real posh coffee machine but I'm a heathen and I don't like real posh coffee. I like instant coffee. So we only really use this when my parents come or when James is feeling adventurous. Just moved these guys through here. These are Black Prince Echeveria, which I really like, and these, which are String of Buttons or something. I can't remember. But I've moved them through here because I'm going to plant up that garlic. I've got my soil, I've got my pots, and I've got my sprouted garlic. You're not really supposed to plant it out until mid-March, so I'm going to plant it up and put it on the front windowsill out the front. This is the back. This is north facing and the front south, so these guys will be all right here, but I'll put the garlics out the front along with the annual seeds I'm going to plant for like tomatoes and things like that later on. Pestle and mortar. This, which I got as a gift, cupcake cookie tin, but it's actually got tahini, can't see what I'm doing, tahini cracker thins. I've got a video for these, but they're really nice. Basically flax seeds, linseed, tahini and whatever other seeds you've got, and they keep for ages and they're really nice and nice. This is a dough scraper that I got years ago, but a lot of people in the zero waste community use these for pot scrapers rather than the green bit on the back of a scour sponge. So I've got that out on the side in here. We're still working our way through our liquid soaps, so we're not going to replace these. We've got bar soaps and bamboo soap dishes to use. We have one down here and one up in the bathroom upstairs, but we're just using them up first. We're going to keep this bottle in use and fill it up again. This cupboard is not tidy, but I got a huge 5 litre plastic bottle of fairy liquid. So rather than lots of 750ml bottles, you just get one big 5 litre bottle and keep filling that small one up for ages. While I'm in here, I'll show you some other bits. This is an eco egg that is good for 210 washes. You just put it in the washing machine and leave it in the drum and do your washing. I saw it on the Meldrums YouTube channel, and it's got, which side's it on? There. It's got the Queen's Award for Enterprise Innovation, and it's supposed to be really good. So once we've finished our old capsules in the plastic bag, we're going to switch over to this. Monkey nuts and soap nuts, I've heard a lot of people rave about, but I've also heard that there's some negative sides to how they get them from Nepal, where they're grown, and the local people are no longer able to afford them, so they're using chemical detergents and they wash things in the waterways. So I've heard that buying soap nuts is not necessarily the best thing to do. But horse chestnuts, conkers in this country, are the same family, and they also make a very good detergent apparently. So there's no conkers at the moment, but I will get some conkers next year and try making detergent from that. This is powdered dishwasher powder, because the old things we had were all wrapped in plastic, and these washcloths are what we are using now instead of sponge scourers. I made a couple of unsponges, which I did a video on, but I'm going to make some more because I didn't quite like the way that they worked when they were finished. So this cupboard is all full of glass jars and things that I've used and washed up and that are stood ready, and Tupperware and things. These go on to the actual blender. They're the jug for the blender, so you turn them upside down and then they become a bottle, and that's what I do the oat milk and hummus and things like that in. I've got more bottles out there which I'm going to try and make elderflower cordial and blackberry cordial and things when I'm foraging next summer. I might try making some sloe gin. I don't like gin, but lots of other people like gin, so I'm sure I can give it away as gifts or swap it for things I want. In here is our cooking pots and our slow cooker. These are ceramic stoneware. We've got one pizza stone and one casserole dish, and they're really nice because of the way they heat the food. I think people who like gin would definitely barter me for the slow gin. I've just cleaned out this cupboard today, and this has got all of my kitchen appliances and baking accessories, things like that. And this that my husband got for Christmas from his mum and dad, which is like a circular saw that you use in carpentry, but it's a pizza wheel. Which is a lot of fun. And this is a silicone popcorn tub that you put in the microwave. And popcorn is obviously a really great zero waste snack because you can make it at home, and you only buy one bag of popping corns that's worth like, I don't know, 100 bags of crisps. So popcorn's one of the things that we are having a lot. So this is the man cupboard, otherwise known as the dumping ground for tools and garden and household bits that I don't know what they are. We have got a, oh, knocking things off the wall behind me. I'm right up against those things that go behind the door. That's how small this kitchen is. So this is a washer dryer, which obviously makes a lot less space in a very small kitchen, and it's really good as both a washer and a dryer, which is unusual, so we really rate this. This is my compost household kitchen waste receptacle thing, and I'll show you down the bottom of the garden there. I've got my compost bin, and then I've got a compost pile as well of larger things that I haven't broken up or mulched or anything. And yes, the whole house is the colour of a Battenberg or a cupcake. It is a Beco ProSmart inverter. I don't know, that's all I know. We've got dog food, dog treat tins, and then you can see here where my husband and father-in-law jerry-rigged a water supply over here to plumb in our tiny dishwasher. So we've got a super small space-saving dishwasher. Yeah, they're really good. So this is a fridge freezer that was actually left in the house when we moved in, the laundry stuff, and my cooking chair. This was a wonderful charity shop find last year when I was really ill, because I can't stand up very easily when I'm having attacks, so I can sit on that, and it's exactly the right height. Pick that up. It's exactly the right height to be able to reach the hob surface over there. So that's my cooking chair. It's like an umpire's chair from cricket or something like that. This is a very empty fridge. That's the oat milk, that's some hummus. So these are those bottles that I was saying about. So they go upside down on the blender, and you actually blend the stuff in them and then turn them upside down and pour a lids on. These are wax wrapped cheeses. So all the cheese that we buy at the moment is wax wrapped rather than plastic wrapped. We were having trouble finding affordable ones, but these are three for £3 from Morrison's, so they're £1 each. So they are very affordable. Here is loads of marmalade and things that I made last year. Jams, marmalades, all sorts of bits and pieces in there. In the fridge door. So James is switched to soy milk because he doesn't like the oat milk, but I don't like the soy milk, so we're using 2 different kinds now instead. So the bottom here, I have got 2 freezers. I really like these. So these are silicone ice cube trays. These ones are actually soap trays, but they're just the right size to freeze bits of passata and chopped tomatoes and things, so that you've got just a serving's worth. And this is katsu curry paste, which I've done the same thing with, so I do like my silicone ice cube trays and things like that. These are the breads that I made last week. Give you a look-see. That's my tiger bread that I made. So I'm just using plastic carrier bags to freeze the bread in. And I keep a stash of those under my sink. So the only things that we are buying for the freezer, sorry, I'll put it up a bit, are things that come in cardboard packaging like that. This curtain thing that I rigged up actually matches all my tableware because I'm cool like that. So yeah, my teapot, all my knives and forks and plates and everything match this fabric. This we got from eBay, and we drove all the way to Cheltenham to pick it up from a lovely lady, and it is also full of frozen stuff. So I've still got a whole load of frozen stuff from the garden last year, but I've also got a load of things that I've meal prepped. So these are southern fried battered cauliflower wings for deep fat frying. These are breaded bean bones that I use to make katsu curry in place of breaded chicken. These are pizza dough. That's another pizza dough. This is chips in southern fried dressing. So the thing about freezing things in the mason jars is that they freeze fine. You have to leave the lid open until they have frozen. But when you get them out, if you want to defrost them or put them in the microwave, you need to be able to get all of this off. It's very straightforward. So I'm going to settle you there and show you basically how this works. So the one that has the clip on goes around the actual neck, so there's a groove for it. You pinch it together and you can see these two bits here, and you've got a little thing that you just pop over that like that, which holds it in place around there. And then you've got your lid with the rubber gasket. Put that on the wrong way around. And you put this around the lid so that the little hook to put the clip over is facing upwards, and you pinch these two parts together. Do it the right way out. Pinch these two bits together and on like that. And so you can put these glass jars into the microwave. These are reinforced glass, whatever it's called, tempered glass, so you can freeze and then you can pop them straight into the microwave or the oven or whatever. I don't actually put them in the oven, but if you want to defrost things, you can get that whole thing off. It all basically is this part here that you have to learn about, and you just pinch and pull it out as I've just shown. So yeah, I really like these. These ones I got for £1.50 from Asda, and they are 1 litre. And they also did this size. These are blackboard stickers, and I've got a blackboard pen to write on them when I've made stuff to go in them to say what it was. And these ones are 550 millilitres and were £1, so Asda was doing really good value. These ones were all from B&M and they were really good value as well. And that's an actual Kilner bottle that I used to use for milk in the mini fridge in our guest bedroom. And Kilner bottles like this are really expensive, so there's no need to get Kilner branded stuff. So where have I got up to? Yeah, we've got the microwave up here. This is a cake stand, but I have been using this to dry out seeds. So I've got a jar here which has got chili seeds and butternut squash seeds that I have got from produce from the supermarket. When I'm cutting it up to prepare it for dinner, I wash the seeds and lay them out on this and let them dry over a couple of days, and then I put them in a jar for planting next year. So the butternut squash seeds, I grew them last year. They grew and grew and grew, but I didn't put them in the ground until maybe July, and you need to plant them in April to get an actual harvest off them. And I planted a lot of chilies last year and they did really well. We make a lot of chili jam. I think I've got some of my famous chili jam down here actually that I did. The recipe for this is in my Christmas hamper videos if you want to see that. I do love making jams. So this monstrosity of a cupboard that I love is the tall boy, and this is my pantry. I'll show you that in a second. I'm just going to actually finish this. This is something my mum got me, and it's an Angry Mama microwave cleaner, and you fill it with half vinegar and half water. You twist her head off and you stick her in the microwave, put it on for a few minutes, and she rotates around grimacing and cleaning the microwave, and then you just wipe it out inside, and it's it just really amuses me as well. And this is the table salt container, which I have just washed up because we've finished it, and I'm going to fill it up from the bulk one. So I couldn't find salt, not in plastic, anywhere around here, so I decided to get the biggest one I can, and I'll fill up my salt shaker from that. So there's still some plastic bits at the top here. I bulk bought sweetener months and months ago, so I've still got 3 packets of that I think in there, and there's some other bits and pieces in there, but I'm not going to obviously get rid of them and get non-plastic ones. I'm just going to use them up as they go along. So I've got a million different oils and vinegars, not a million, there's about 4 or 5, and these little coconut creams, which are absolutely brilliant for making vegan frosted icing, like you might have butter icing. I can't remember, it's not called butter icing, it's called something like that. I can't think, but the vegan alternative to that is using coconut cream, and they are really tasty. These are my dried goods. This is the dried fruit. Oh, sorry, I'm pointing you down. This is the dried fruit that I made in the dehydrator, and this is some of the granola that I made with the dried fruit and with some of the oats. So oats is one thing we can find in paper bags, so I've got a lot of oat recipes now. These are the dried apple slices. So these, you slice the apple up and took the centre out, as you can see they've got a hole in the middle, and sprinkled them with cinnamon and put them in the dehydrator, and they are not how I expected them to taste at all. I thought they would be quite mild, but they're really, really tangy, and like apple sours that I used to have in my younger days taste like that. This here is a bottle of citrus cordial that I made, but it is really, really bitter, so we haven't actually drunk any of it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but yeah, it is orange, limes and lemons. I'm sure there's a use for it. Maybe someone can think of some recipes for that. Hi Mum! My mum's in the chat. Say hi Mum. So here is some tin foil that I've been washing up and reusing and reusing and reusing. Hi Mum. And I've got baking paper and kitchen foil. I'm not really using this very much anymore because I'm now using the silicone baking sheet. Could you use the cordial with honey? Probably, that might work actually. Maybe make a hot toddy out of it. That would be good. these are from Aldi Desserts, and these James's mum and dad gave us at Christmas. There's 2 different sizes, and I imagine they were from something similar that you actually bought at the supermarket. Here is the pasta I made last week. So this is vegan egg-free pasta. The red ones have got beetroot in, and the green ones have got green pea powder in to make them this colour, because I just think it looks cool. And these are farfalle, or butterfly pasta, but I don't have one of those like zigzag pinking sheer rollers that they use to make the edges, so mine are straight edged, but they're still really pretty, and you get to see them in the lovely glass jar. The rest of this is different kinds of flour. This is the rice flour for the tiger bread. This flour is stone ground at Maple Durham House, just north of Reading. It's literally as you come out of Caversham. Maple Durham House is a beautiful, beautiful house with a watermill that still works and still is grinding flour with the stone ground. And the reason you would want stone ground flour, I know this because my uncle, who is a really avid bread maker, told me, is that it is ground much slower than the steel grinders that they use in bulk making flour like this. So that flour gets heated and a lot of the nutritional value is lost, but the stone ground flour is its cold process, the grinding, and so you don't lose the nutritional value. Here's my pasta machine, a lot more empty glass jars because I've just done a massive stint of washing them all and finding places to put them. Some cake mix in paper bags. I'm not so confident with baking cakes. I like bread, I can do bread, but yeah, cakes not so confident, so I like those. Those come in paper, so they're nice and zero waste friendly, and some corn flour down the end. And these have got oat granola biscuit type things, which my husband makes with chocolate and things for his breakfast biscuits for work. Oh, these ones, or the Maple Durham one, Drew? Which flour have you got the same? These ones were 3 kilos a bag, and they were £1 for 3 kilos. So I thought that was really good value. I don't actually use self-raising flour because that would be for like baking like sweet things, I think. I use plain flour all the time for pizza dough and bread and things like that. The Morrison stuff, yeah. I thought that was really good value for 3 kilos for £1, so I'm pleased with that. So that is the tall boy unit, which is the vast majority of our, same reason it was so cheap. This is our dustbin setup. So we've got the big dustbin that we've always had. I need to put a new bag in there because I've just emptied it, and the bag was maybe a third full, but James was still putting some organic matter into that instead of into the compost caddy, so it was starting to smell, so I have just taken that out. But that was maybe full to here, about a third I would say, and that's been going since like the beginning of January, so it's just not filled up fast at all. Not really been putting much in it at all. I did pull out some of the things James put in there and recycled them, or whatever, but there was so much tea leaves and things like that that it was really nasty, and I didn't want to go there. So here are my seeds that I was talking about earlier that I dried. These are ice lolly sticks that I saved last summer when we ate a lot of ice lollies, because I use those for crafty things and for planting in the garden. You write what you put on what you sowed, and then you stick that in the soil and it tells you what you planted there. This is my tea box that I decorated when I was about 14, Mum, would you say? I think I was about 14. And inside the tissue paper on the other side there's Assam and Darjeeling, and a little bent teaspoon. And Dad said I was a heroin addict because I had a bent teaspoon. I didn't understand why at the time, but yeah, about 14. And the reason that I made this was because my brother and sister's godmother and godfather told me that they really liked. Wow, hello Susan from Indiana, USA. Cool, you've come a long way. So yeah, the reason is they told me that they blended Earl Grey and Assam and Darjeeling mixed together, so 3 different types of tea leaves, and it made a really nice tea, which it did. This tea is the same tea from when I was 14 and I'm now 30, so it really needs emptying out. That's really disgusting. I don't use it anymore, but I just pulled it out and stuck it here when we moved in, as I did in the last flat we were in for 7 years. So I need to do something with it, but I don't know what yet. This is the wax from the cheese rounds. So this wax is part paraffin wax. So a lot of people use this to make fire starters with egg box cartons, you know, the cardboard egg box cartons, and they soak them in this, and that makes a really good fire starter for the bonfire, for the barbecue and camping trips and things like that. I used it to make, let's take this out, see I've got a jar there full of little drawstring fabric bags that I melted wax and fractionated coconut oil, which doesn't go rancid. It's like a unique property of it from where it was fractionated, to make these little drawstring bags, and they are freezer bags. So freezer burn is a turn the camera around. Freeze burn is a process where the water that's inside the cells of the food comes out through the cell walls and gets onto the outside of the food, and that's what causes the freezer burn. The freezer burn isn't actually damage that's done by ice to the food. It is the dehydrating of the cells of the food. So if you notice when you get something that's got freezer burn, if you eat it, it's really dry, and that's why, is because that's what freezer burn is. It's the actual drying out of the food. So if you can put it in a waterproof and airtight container in the freezer, it prolongs the life before it gets freezer burn. So that's why I made the wax and oil freezer bags. Can't remember what I'm talking about now. So that's it really. There's not a lot else. It's a very small kitchen. So I do these that I showed Drew earlier. These are French garlic, which I watched a live stream last night from a lady called Brittany Dane in Canada, and she did tell me whether they were loose neck or hard neck, soft neck or hard neck garlic, and I can't remember. I didn't know there was a difference, but as they've all started sprouting early, I am going to pot them up. So I have got a bowl full of compost here, and I've got a lot of plastic plant pots from chili plants and tomato plants that I bought last year, that I've saved and somewhat washed up so that I can pot up these garlic. So I think I'll do that, and if you guys have got any questions about the zero waste kitchen, if you let me know in the chat, then I will answer those as I'm potting these up. If you've got any questions about zero waste in general, then let me know in the chat. So I have filled this with compost, and I've patted it down quite a bit so that it has got no air pockets around where the roots of the garlic will be, but not so much that it can't easily push its roots out. So you plant the garlic cloves with this bit facing down, and the pointy bit where the shoot comes out facing up, and the roots will come out of this hard bit at the bottom of the garlic clove. And you just about cover it up to the shoot, and that's it. So I'm going to pot these up. Right, let me how do I see the rest of the messages? Oh, there we go. Okay, what are your struggles with zero waste? I'm getting started with zero waste. I think our biggest struggles are chips. Not chips, crisps. Americans would call them potato chips. We call them crisps, and you can't get them really that are not wrapped in plastic. The only ones that I can think of that you can get that are not wrapped in plastic from the shop are Pringles, but they do come with a plastic lid. I did try making our own. I tried making them in the oven, and they were okay, but they didn't really dry out enough. So then I tried making them in a dehydrator, but all the recipes didn't cook the potatoes first. They just sliced them very thin and put them in the dehydrator, and when we tried them they just tasted like raw potato. They were unpleasant. So that's probably been our biggest struggle, is dealing with foods that we like, processed foods, that we can't get zero waste. And the trick to zero waste does seem to be doing all your own home cooking from first principles, and buying bulk of those first principles so that you're using as little packaging as possible. How do I get the chat back? Oh, there we go. Yes, Mum has been telling me in France they have aisles in the supermarket where you can go and fill up your own containers. You can take in, a jar like this or a fabric bag, and you can fill them with oats, rice, pasta, all sorts of dried goods. And they do have more of a community of local produce in France, which is sometimes not good, I think, because you can't get things unless they're in season, and sometimes, you want things that aren't in season. But in other ways it is good, because it means that stuff's all come from local farmers, and is things that are native to the local environment and that are grown and that are actually in season at the time. So it's got its pros and cons. How much overall do you think a zero waste lifestyle can save you? In money terms, a lot. There have been some things that are not cheap. So where we are in West Oxfordshire, we're right near Chipping Norton, and that's where David Cameron and Jeremy Clarkson and all the rich people live. So there's an awful lot of lovely little boutique shops, like cheese shops, bread shops, sweet shops and things like that, but you pay an awful lot of a markup to go and buy things there plastic free. So I think it's got its pitfalls, because you can go out and you can say, oh, I need to go out and get a metal water bottle, insulated water bottle to take around all the time, so I don't buy plastic water bottles, and I need to buy a wooden scrubbing brush for the kitchen sink and things like that. And those are things that you wouldn't actually have bought otherwise, but you tripped up and bought them because you were going zero waste. So I think if you try and avoid those pitfalls, it saves you a lot of money. For example, buying a bag of popping corn kernels that only uses one plastic wrap, that'll cost you £1 something, and you'll get the equivalent of, I don't know, maybe 50 plus bags of pre-popped popcorn, or of crisps, or of an equivalent sort of savoury or sweet snack, all for the price of £1. So I don't think you can beat that in terms of the processed foods that you buy in plastic. It's just changing your mind shift and changing your shopping habits and things. And once you do something for 3 weeks, it's a new habit that you formed, and it's really easy to do it in future. But for the first 3 weeks, you want to try and add things rather than subtract things. So like the second you say you're going on a diet and you want to lose weight, you feel like you're deprived of all the nice food and all the nice treats that you deserve because you work hard and all the rest of it. So rather than that mentality of taking things away, you need to try and approach it from the mentality of adding things in. So if you look at it as you're going to add in more fresh produce, it's a different mindset, and it makes you find it easier to form that habit without feeling like you're missing out on anything. If you look at it as you want to spend more time enjoying making food and things in the kitchen, and that sort of thing, it's much more of a pleasure than a pain, and it's easy to form that habit. Let's have a look at the chat again. We have an excellent recycling system in the community where I live, so it's maybe less of an issue. Yes, we also are blessed with a very good recycling setup around here. You can recycle everything curbside: glass, plastic, paper, aluminium tin cans, foils, soft plastics, pretty much anything you can think of you can probably recycle around here. The aim of the game with zero waste isn't to recycle more, but actually to recycle less, because it's trying to avoid unnecessary packaging. So if you imagine that you go and you buy lots of small bottles of olive oil like this. This is a very expensive way of shopping. So this is 750 millilitres of olive oil, and this was a good couple of pounds. I don't know, maybe £4, something like that. But you can buy a big like 5 litre tin olive oil container, and it then works out a lot more cost effective, because it's something like 15% of every purchase you make, you're paying for the packaging. So if you look at it from the ambition of trying to recycle less because you're just using less resources in general, you'll be using less energy to create those things, to mine the resources or to grow the resources, and then to process them to make them suitable for manufacture into the final packaging product, and then the energy and things that would be required, and the labour that would be required to then turn those things from the packaging into a raw material again, ready for reuse. So I think the point with zero waste is actually to recycle less and not more. However, I think it's very important that every community in the world provides the best recycling facilities they can for the products that there are that require. You actually do have to buy some things, you can't live completely without any form of packaging. So I think it is really important to have a good recycling system. You can use Pringle tubs for so many other things though. Yes, and actually the lids from Pringles tubs and Azera coffee and things like that make very good caps for aluminium tin cans. So if you've opened a tin of beans, you can cap it with a Pringles lid or a Azera coffee lid, and so those plastic lids are worth keeping around the house as well. Although you mustn't really put aluminium tin cans back in the fridge for any length of time, because that's supposedly dangerous. I don't know if it is anymore. Really hard to make crisps at home. Yes, I agree. I haven't found a solution I like yet. Do you batch cook? Yes, I do a lot of meal prep. I meal prep junk food a lot of the time, things that we can eat on the weeknights when neither of us can be bothered to cook. Whereas the the times when I can be bothered to cook, I'll cook things like jambalayas, gumbos, risottos, things like that, and I'll cook twice as much as we need and freeze half, rather than actually batch cooking them just for freezing. Too true can be a nuisance. I don't know what you're referring to, Mum. Surely it cost you quite a bit to make the wax bags and buy the mason jars, etc. And it did cost me quite a bit to add some mason jars to the collection, but because I got them at a very reasonable rate from B&M and Asda, it wasn't that much. And I didn't have any dry goods storage options really, apart from a couple of cake tins previously, and I had just given away all of my glass jars that I'd collected last year in my Christmas hampers full of jams and chutneys and things, and to my friend's wedding where we made the table centres out of them. So I really did need to invest in a few things. The wax bags, the wax I already had, some of it was from the cheese rind truckle waxes, and some of it was beeswax, which I had in my cosmetics stash where I make my cool balms, heat balms, aromatherapy balms, and I made lip balms and things for the Christmas hampers with it, and I've made the wax wraps and things. So I haven't actually bought any more wax yet. I'm still going through the same batch of beeswax bars that I got. And again, you should definitely support your local beekeepers with beeswax purchases. If you're in the States, I don't know what the deal with honey and beeswax there is, whether you can find small beekeepers, but in Britain we have them everywhere. We've got a real community of beekeepers. It's a very old traditional craft that is still widely practiced and is very well regulated to protect our pollinators. So getting beeswax ethically is not a problem for me. Hi Han and Eddie, thank you very much. Is zero waste really time consuming? Cooking from first principles is more time consuming than grabbing things out of the freezer. Making some of the stuff that I've made is more time consuming, but you can buy them all on Etsy. So beeswax, foods wraps, things like that, unsponges, all the cosmetic things that I've DIY'd, you can get them all pre-made. So then it's less time consuming but more expensive. If you didn't particularly want to do a huge amount of food prep, you can buy a lot of freezer goods in cardboard boxes, so you wouldn't necessarily need to spend a huge amount of time cooking. Because I've been very ill for the last year and a bit, I'm still only working part-time, so on my rest days I stay in the house, I don't really go anywhere, and I cook and do zero waste stuff. So for me it's been easy to do the time rather than have the money, because obviously being sick long term has its negative side on your bank balance. Susan says, it's very frustrating starting out and using up all of the foods, etc., in all the packaging and trying to put it in the proper place. Yes, it really is. I totally feel you on that, Susan. Frustrated at myself, yes, I get that. I did a big clear out the other day, and I went through and I took things out of plastic packaging and put them into glass mason jars, which seems like an incredibly hypocritical and stupid thing to do, but there was method in my madness, in that I could then lay out all of the plastic packaging and see what things there were left that I was going to need to find a new source for, but things that were taking a long time to use up. So things like paella rice and arborio rice and things like that I wasn't using every single day, and so the plastic packaging was not getting finished up, but I wanted to see exactly what I had and what exactly it was that I needed to purchase. I have joined a food cooperative in West Oxford where they bulk buy food, organic, whole foods and things from a company in Brighton who deliver the stuff to Oxford. So I can purchase pasta, rices, oats, flours, beans, seeds, nuts, anything like that through that cooperative. So I will be able to replace those things, but I needed to come together with a list because I've now got to sit down with this spreadsheet that they send you and fill in my order lines for the bulk goods that I want to buy through them. So there was method in my madness, but it now means that my kitchens look my kitchen cupboard looks a lot more zero waste than it did a few weeks ago, even though part of that is a little bit false advertising, because some of the things in those glass jars did come in plastic packaging originally. So yes, I feel your frustration. Oh, that really is weird when I put my hand to the screen. Susan says yes, good idea. I'm not sure what that was at. Was that at getting rid of all the plastic things so you could see what you had? I've got mud all over my face. Got mud all over my hands as well. I am nearly out of compost, but I still got some more garlic things, so I will carry on with that later because I need to go out to the front garden and get more compost. Has anyone got any more questions? Because we've been live streaming. Susan says yes, that was what it was. Okay. Has anyone got any more questions about zero waste or about kitchen money saving hacks or anything like that that you would like to ask now before I wrap up the stream? Just have some on my coffee while I'm waiting. Sorry, that's my dog. I'll show you this as well. This is my dehydrator. So I got this off eBay and it was £23.95. So it was a very reasonably priced appliance. It is large, but I do have this space on top of the fridge freezer to put it. And obviously it is plastic, but I grow a lot of fruit and veg since we moved in here, and I need a way to process that food to preserve it for use throughout the rest of the year. And getting the dehydrator seemed like a really good way of preserving my fruits. The other thing I do a lot of in the summer months is I go foraging or hedgerowing, which is it sounds rude, but it's not. It's basically where you go foraging things from the hedgerows. I was eating finger food. I don't know what you meant there, Drew. Do you can any goods? I do jams and chutneys. I haven't tried pickling. I have got a book that I got for Christmas from my in-laws. I got 2 gardening books. One that was a Alan Titchmarsh book that was both flowers and veg, and the other one that I got is fruit and veg. And the fruit and veg book, not only does it tell you how to grow them, it also tells you what you can make with them. It gives recipe suggestions for every different fruit and veg it lists. And then at the back it has a whole section on different methods of preserving, and that included both pickling things but also what they call bottling, which I imagine is kind of like the brain in a jar type thing you see in with pickles and things floating around in oil. I think that's probably what it is. I need to read more of that. I sat and read through that the other night when I was planning out my kitchen garden for this year. So the plan with the kitchen garden, I am going to sow a lot of garlic and onion this year as companion planting, as well as some marigolds and other flowers that will hopefully save some of my crops that got decimated last year by caterpillars. And I was on this Brittany Dane live stream yesterday evening, and she suggested using hoops with fabric netting over the top to keep the moths that actually lay the eggs that then turn into caterpillars from nesting on my brassicas. Because last year I planted broccoli and cauliflower and cabbages and kale and carrots and all sorts of things, and the carrots, which apparently that's not normal for the carrots to be eaten by caterpillars, but all the carrot tops got eaten, and the dwarf French beans, about a third of the bushes got eaten by the caterpillars as well. So even though I did get a lot of beans from my dwarf French beans, and I'll definitely be doing those again, they are a bush variety of beans, so they don't need to grow really tall, which is good because I can't really make anything too tall in the front garden. I'm going to do some more of those this year, but apparently planting garlic and onion, the smell of garlic and onion detracts the leaf eaters, so hopefully I can actually harvest more of what I plant this year. I've got some onion sets and I've got these garlic that are sprouting that I need to deal with and get into pots. I can't plant the garlic or the onions outdoors until end of March really, because it's too cold. So I'm going to get them growing on the window ledge indoors until then. And I am planting parsnips, I'm planting rhubarb. So rhubarb, I've got asparagus in the front bed, and rhubarb is like that in that you plant it and it takes several years to develop before you can actually harvest it. It's a perennial, and it forms this crown root structure under the ground, and crowns look like weird something from Harry Potter, you know, the mandrake roots, but they look like weird spider things, and you plant them in the soil. If you plant it from a crown that's already established, you can harvest pretty soon. If you plant from seed, you have to wait several years. So my asparagus is 1 year old, but it'll be at least another 2 years before I can really harvest from it. And the rhubarb I'm going to plant in the same bed with the same sort of setup. I'm also going to grow vine tomatoes up a sort of cage thing. I did bush tomatoes last year, and Brittany was explaining to me last night that bush tomatoes, one of the side effects of bush tomatoes is that all the tomatoes fruit and then ripen at the same time, so you get a huge crop of tomatoes all in one go. So they're good for the supermarkets, and they're good for commercial growers or people who are going to be canning the tomatoes, making passatas and things like that. But I want them for salads in the summer, so I don't want that. And apparently the vine tomatoes, they fruit at different times, so they will produce a steady trickle of tomatoes throughout the growing season, which is much more what I had in mind. So I can't think what else I'm planting. I'm planting butternut squash. Butternut squash takes an awful lot of space. So where I've got that, turn you around here, where I've got behind the picnic bench, I've got my compost bin, but I've also got the big compost pile. When that has rotted down some more and formed a sort of big mound of nice rich mulch, I will plant my butternut squash seeds out the back there, because butternut and pumpkins and squashes and things, they are creeper vines and they shade out anything else that's in the bed with them. They have these huge big leaves, so they just basically provide a complete ground cover, and you can't grow anything else around them really. and they just take up a lot of space. So I don't want to use up all the space I've got in my front garden with them this year. I'm going to put those out the back, and I'm going to focus on my Mediterranean crops at the front because it's south facing, and I've also got raspberry canes that I cut back from last year, which they've already got new buds forming. They will go again this year. Oh, bye Drew, thanks for coming. Just you and me for the first 10 minutes, so thank you very much for being there. Drew's the one that convinced me to do this, so thank you very much, Drew. I can't remember what I was saying. Mediterranean plants out the front because it's south facing and it's hot. I've got raspberry canes. I've got my cranberry bush that produced one whole cranberry last year, so that's obviously a perennial, so that will carry on. I've got a gooseberry bush that produced a lot of gooseberries. So my cranberry, my raspberries, my gooseberries, and I've got a mojo berry mulberry bush, which is a very small variety of mulberry bush that produces both red and black mulberries. And all of the fruits from these went together in my Christmas hamper mixed fruit jams that I made. The other thing that I am doing is obviously the foraging and things. We have literally one street over there, the other side of the houses out the front. We have got a scrubby bit of ground that you get between houses and an estate, and it has got about 5 or 6 apple trees on, and they're not crab apple trees, they are big cooking apples. I wouldn't eat them, they're not sort of sweet dessert apples or whatever they're called that you would eat like a pink lady or anything like that, but I mean nobody goes and gets them, and they're just there on public land. There's lots of these bits. When this estate was built back in the early 90s, they put in an awful lot of pear trees, damson trees, lots and lots of elderflower and elderberry. Obviously it's the same plant trees. I think they're elder trees, rowan trees as well. It's the same family of tree. But there's all of those out here, and we've also got a lot of sloes and blackberries down at the country park. Sorry, Charlie's gone off again. So the plan is to harvest all of that stuff and can it all and have it in the cupboard, and that's going to be the really big zero waste thing. So getting on with sorting out exactly what I'm going to plant this year, because last year it was the first time I'd ever gardened. I didn't know anything about gardening. I had gardened plant pots and killed all my flowers, but I'd never gardened anything to eat until the year before last in the flat when I grew microgreens, and then last year when I grew a lot of stuff. So I've been reading, I've been researching, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos and planning my garden to make the most of every sort of square inch of garden space I have for growing produce for us here, which is obviously very zero waste. It's also very cheap and free and lovely. I've put my name down for an allotment, but there are 30 families on the waiting list before me, and there's only about a dozen allotment plots. So I think that's going to be a very long wait. They said it would be years, so in the meantime I'm just going to get on. So thank you very much everyone for coming. I don't think there's any more questions, so I am going to sign off here, and I'm going to go and plant up some more garlic cloves. Thank you everyone for coming and dropping in. This might have been my first live stream, and I was absolutely terrified that no one would turn up, so thank all of you for coming along to watch this today.